All right, welcome back to XRAY FM, and welcome to Justin Rigamonti, the curator of our biweekly PCC segment. Justin is a local poet, educator, editor, and nonprofit director. He teaches writing and composition.
Composition, yeah. Good morning.
At Portland Community College, and is founder and operations director of Poetry Press Week. So hi, Justin.
Hi. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us very early today. So, how long have you been involved with PCC?
With PCC, wow, since 2011.
Nice.
But I took classes at PCC back in the day too. I mean, I grew up
Cool.
in the area out by the Rock Creek campus, and so it's been part of my life, my whole life.
Right on. That's
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were a Portland local.
Yep. Grew up out there in the fields,
Mm-hmm.
which are now, all businesses and so forth. But
Mm-hmm.
the march of time.
So it goes. Right on. So you started working there in 2011?
Winter of 2011. Yeah, I came in on the tail end of the spike in people taking community college classes after the 2008 crash.
Mm-hmm.
Huge influx of people taking community college classes, and
Oh, interesting.
I was able to get a job on the tails of that. And of course, all kinds of things have gone on since then in the market and in Portland. But I was lucky to get caught up in that, and so I've been there ever since.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. And
Well, first off, what are some of the classes you teach at PCC, Justin?
Oh, well, I've always taught the main three composition classes. And anybody who had to take college writing classes knows what those are. They're the basic. At PCC, we call them 121, 115, 121, and 122. And it's research, comp writing. I actually really enjoy it because I love nerding out on grammar, on syntax, on the basics of composition. I love paragraphs. But I won't talk about that stuff because it's boring. But I also teach creative writing. I teach poetry classes, and I also teach the advanced creative writing, editing, and publishing class, which happens only once a year. And we make one of PCC's 3-4 literary magazines. Up here at Cascade campus, it's called The Pointed Circle. It's been called that since 1984 when it was founded up here on the campus. So we're doing the 40th anniversary edition this year.
wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and Alchemy, our sister magazine down at Sylvania campus in Southwest Portland, they're doing their 50th anniversary edition this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's exciting for us.
Community college for the win.
Right. Oh man, I've become a huge advocate of community college. I have always been and wasn't conscious of it, just as somebody who went to community college myself. But it wasn't until I started working at a community college. Having worked, I taught in my grad program. I taught at UC Irvine, so I taught in the UC system, and just seeing some of the ways that universities work, the kinds of discourse that comes out of them, the kinds of people that come out of them. I love community college. People are real. People are, they're coming back to school in their 50s and their 40s.
Yeah.
They're there because they want to be there.
Yeah.
They're there because they decided to be there. Nobody's trust funding them into college. Nobody's forcing them to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a beautiful thing. My partner, who is also a writer, always likes to talk about how good the poets in my poetry classes are. Because they're not trying to fit any framework. You come out of some of these Iowa school, and some of these big writing schools, you have a particular style or aesthetic you're pushed into. And the students here are just writing from their own raw experience in life, and they've had a lot of experience because they've had to claw their way up out of all kinds of trauma, all kinds of poverty and social-based issues, and they've lived life, and they know how to write about it in a raw and exciting way. So I'm very proud of my students.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
It's really ironic, right? When I think about the creatives in any medium that I am drawn to or admire the most, it's folks who write from the heart or have a type of genre breaking element to storytelling, and yet, to your point, here are these institutions and frameworks to tell everyone to be the same status quo person, but that's not actually what we value and consider to be good art, right? So that's really cool.
It's a complicated story in the world of poetry. What makes something good, because it's both cultural affirmation, but also some kind of individual spontaneity and idiosyncratic style, ability to voice yourself in a way that's interesting to the rest of us. So it's a constant conversation between tradition and individual inspiration. So it's.
I love the way you talk about poetry that way.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about what the inspiration was for HARTSBeat?
Well, so last summer, Chase came to us. Chase Sprouse came to us and said, "Do y'all want to do a segment?" And he pitched us on weekly, and we're like, "Oh, we can't make that happen." So we ended up on biweekly, and we were pretty nervous about it. But it was a team of us from the HARTS initiative at PCC, and the HARTS initiative HARTS stands for Humanities and Arts, and it was started. I'm gonna fumble this, but it was like 6-7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, by a couple faculty who just were seeing the decline in attention from administration toward humanities and arts at PCC. And that's a problem nationwide, where the humanities are receiving less funding, less attention. People are sort of pushing them to the first classes to get cut. And so they saw that and they wanted to preclude, some kind of drastic measure at PCC. So they started promoting humanities and arts. And I joined the council, the Humanities and Arts Council, in the summer of 2019 when I came on to help with the Carolyn Moore Writers House, which is a new program at PCC and a very exciting program. But in that last summer, we decided, hey, we got these people on our committee, on our initiative, that can do this, and we're excited about it. Myself and Caitlin Dwyer, and then one of our student assistants, Miriam Sluis, was also very excited about it. And we've made it work. We really enjoy it. We love doing it. I love interviewing local writers, residents of the Carolyn Moore Writers House. And Caitlin and Miriam are fantastic, and we've made it work. Despite our apprehensions at the beginning, we've really been able to pull it off and enjoyed it.
That's super awesome. So for listeners, can you tell them a little bit about like a brief summary of like what the purpose of it is?
Well, the purpose of it for us is really to just display for your listeners and the Portland public what we're doing at PCC within the HARTS community, Humanities and Arts community. It's just so many exciting things, and this is an opportunity to talk about it and to give your listeners a glimpse into all the cool things that are going on at PCC, and that's really our goal, I think. But it's also just fun, so.
Totally.
You mentioned Caitlin and Miriam. We'd be remiss if we didn't give you some airtime to talk about your pieces involved. How do you all go about creating these pieces and the way that you decide who to highlight from
kind of by the, how the saying goes, seat of our pants, we just sort of do it on an ongoing rolling basis every 2 weeks. We schedule it out. We've been scheduling it out. But every 2 weeks we come up with who's up next. And either I will interview somebody. I've done a lot of the interviewing so far. Usually a local writer. Our first interview was with Anis Mojgani, the local poet laureate until the end of April, I think, who's a fantastic person. And my original vision was to, I really wanted to call the one segment within our segment Writers in Restaurants, because I wanted to interview writers in their favorite local restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very excited about that because I love shows where you can hear the clinking of glasses and the crunching of napkins and so forth.
Some good ASMR.
Yeah. I just love that ambient sound. And I love the episode with Anise. You can hear the waitress comes up and asks, if we want more tea or something to that effect. And it creates a really fun, energetic mood. So I was stoked on that idea, interviewing local writers, and then interviewing residents of the Carolyn Moore Writers House too, being able to fold those in. But the rest of the council was very excited about highlighting some of the other cool stuff we're doing, different programs within humanities and arts. Two of the shows that we've done are about arts faculty at PCC or art shows at PCC. So, as I said, just lots of cool stuff going on, and we wanted to talk about it.
Right on. That's awesome. Can you talk a little bit more about the Carolyn Moore
Writers House?
Writers House, yeah.
Yeah. So we're so proud of it. In 2019, a local poet named Carolyn Moore passed down in Tigard, and she was living on her family estate. Her grandparents moved there right after the Homestead Act at the turn of the 20th century, right? When we first entered the 20th century, I think it was 1901 that they acquired the property. She didn't grow up there, but her parents moved there after her grandparents passed. And it was just this huge plot of land down in Tigard. And her mother kept buying more land so that when it got to the 80s, 90s, and Tigard started to blossom, and now, of course, if you've been down there, it's a booming suburb. But when it first started to blossom, they started to sell land off and made gobs of money. Then her mom passed, and so Carolyn moved back up and had this gorgeous house built to her specifications. Money wasn't a factor. She could do anything she wanted. And so the house, which I say only because the house is gorgeous. It's this wood cabin mansion, kind of with two sides, two wings, because she built one for herself and one for her father, Gordon, and he lived on the other side. And so she spent the last part of her life there. She taught in Northern California for 20 years, moved up in the mid-90s, had the house built, and spent the next, 24 years living there and writing. And she was an accomplished writer. She was a great writer. We published it's PCC's first literary publication. We published her collected works in, that would have been 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago. So she passed in 2019 in the spring, and she told her trustees, hey, I want to leave this property to a local literary or educational institution for a writing residency. She didn't know if it happened. She passed before she could be sure it happened, but they did a call for proposals that summer, and PCC, because we have this HARTS program, the HARTS initiative, we were able to put together an awesome team in the middle of the summer in 2019, and we put together, with the help of our folks at the PCC Foundation, we put together a great proposal. And kudos to her trustees for making the, I think, radical decision to choose a community college over Reed, over PSU, over OSU, some of these big programs.
But they already have the funding needed.
Right. But as we know, the rich get richer.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And no other community college in the country has a program like this. So what it is, it's been going for 2 years now. Anise was one of our two first residents. We invite writers to come for a month. We pay them $400 a week. And then we ask them if they'd be willing to engage with our PCC community, and they always are. They give readings, they do workshops down at the house. I encourage you to, and all you listeners too, if we do have workshops available at the house, to sign up, because it's a beautiful thing to go down there and work with writers in the Carolyn Moore Writers House. And these are fantastic writers from around the country. We actually have our first international resident who just arrived on Saturday from Canada.
Wow.
Leanne Dunich, who's also a great musician and the author of a fantastic memoir in verse. So just lots of exciting things going on there. We have one of my favorite poets coming in May. His name is Chen Chen.
Nice.
So very excited about that. And local hero Jay Nichelle, slam poet, is going to be at the house in April.
Super cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a photograph of it, and yeah.
Oh, wow.
Justin's not lying.
No,
it's quite beautiful.
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Wow.
We had a faculty get together the other day, and a lot of the faculty still haven't seen it, and they were, people are just odd. You have to walk inside and see the great room, we call it, which is this octagonal room.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved octagons for some
I can
reason.
see that on the outside. There's one, like
Right,
a window.
and there is that window, but all over on the inside too. And we don't know why exactly. We actually don't know whether that was her aesthetic choice or the architect she worked with. She worked with this old architect. It was his last job.
Wow.
And he was super stoked to have no financial limit. And so he just did all these flourishes, and it's knotty pine all over the inside. Wow. It's just gorgeous.
Wow.
But the great room is especially gorgeous.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. And people can follow that program at CM Writers House on Instagram if they want to see when local, when those workshops are happening, when our readings are happening. And I highly encourage people to check that out. And come down for a workshop sometime. If you're a writer, come on down for a workshop. I've been to all of them, of course, as the coordinator for the house, but they're just phenomenal.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wonderful.
Thanks for sharing.
Sharing us with that.
Yeah.
Justin, we're curious, how long have you been writing poetry for?
Oof. Well, I tell my students, I've always been a poet. I've not always been a writer. A poet is a disposition, I think. A poet is a kind of person, a kind of way of looking at the world, a kind of curiosity that any artist or journalist or anybody can have, right? But a writer is somebody who gets up and writes and spends their time writing, in my view. I didn't start writing poetry until college. There was a very beautiful person I saw that I became enamored of and wrote them a poem. Didn't give it to them, but that was my first poem, the first week of undergraduate, and
Nice.
then from then on I just was obsessed with it. I had written verse before. I had a kids book published the year before. I won this national children's book contest and had a book in verse published, but
Nice.
it wasn't until then that I really got into lyric poetry, and I love it, and I've done it obsessively ever since. I go through lulls where I'm not writing as much, but just this past month in February, I did Poem a Day with two of my students and one former student, and they saw it through. I'm really proud of them.
Nice.
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome.
So kind of elaborating on that on how inspiration hits creatives, like we're wondering what that creative process is like for you, and how do you come up with topics that you'd like to cover and write about?
In my poetry?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with poetry,
besides meeting someone that you're enamored with when you're like 18 years old, right? Like everyone has a muse, right?
Well,
But,
yeah. I mean, and now my muse is my partner, Jessie Carver, whom I love very much, and just have the joy of writing about domestic life with her. Middle-aged man poetry. But my best poems are about her and my life with her and our little 10-pound chihuahua. But I go through phases. I do Poem a Day 2-3 times a year, and I don't know. It's contingent on my perspective on the world at that time of year, at that juncture, in the course of political and social movements. But I'll often choose the form, just decide sort of naturally on the form I'm going to use, and then I pour myself into it. This past month I've been writing sonnets, which I love and have been around. Of course, the Italians invented them. I'm half Italian. My dad's from Rome. He grew up there and came in the 70s to the States. So I love all things Italian, and the Italians came up with the sonnet. The sonetto, they called it, little song. And so I've been writing those for the past month. But, it's just dependent on the kind of form and subject matter that I fall into at that particular moment. I don't know. Inspiration. Yeah, that's a long conversation. The muse.
Can I ask, I know this is kind of a weird specific question, but like how much time do you set aside for writing when you do that? One a day?
Yeah, that's a good question. I start the month off by trying to pump one out in the morning, and it's anywhere from half an hour to an hour. But by the end of the month, and my partner will tell you this, I stay up obsessively writing, sometimes way past the time that she's gone to bed, because it consumes you. You know, it's like anything that you start doing that you love and you get into the rhythm of it, and soon everything becomes a poem. Like I'm just walking around and I hear, you know, I might hear you on the street, Paul, say something, and then that phrase would just suddenly ring with all the music that my body's kind of full of during that month. And so by the end of the month, well, by the very end, I'm exhausted. And it actually my energy petered out before the end of the month, and I told that to the students who were writing with me. But in the middle of the month, in the throes of it, I love it. I'm obsessed with it, and I'll stay up all night writing, and it's a joy.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you've had a couple days to recover.
Yeah, right. And they get worse and worse toward the end of the month. They're bad at the beginning of the month. They're really bad at the end of the month. But in the middle of the month, in that sweet spot, you know, when you're just full of the juice.
Totally.
And then they're good.
See, I love that you, like, as the month goes along, I would have imagined someone would be really exhausted and tired, and their, like, least productive stuff would come out at the end. But I love how you're just gaining momentum even as you're getting more exhausted as the month goes along. That's wonderful.
Right.
That is awesome.
It like I said, it does peter out at the very end. But.
I am curious. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Poetry Press Week?
Yeah. So Poetry Press Week was a beautiful thing.
Oh, was.
Yeah. You know,
Rest in peace.
We just have gone through. It's a vision that we believe will live on in some form. From about 2013 to 2017, we did these big shows. We were trying to change the way people, that poetry was perceived and published as well, and performed as well. So the founder of the nonprofit, Liz Mell, who's a fantastic person, and if you ever want to interview somebody who can talk articulately and beautifully and blow your mind, Liz Mell is the person to speak with. She was obsessed with Fashion Week. She's a very fashionable person. She was obsessed with Fashion Week, and the way that fashion is presented is so sexy and cool and exciting. And the buyers and producers of fashionable products go to the designers. Whereas in the world of poetry, all the poets sit in their little offices or, you know, cubbies in their holes around the country, and they have to send their work in the dark to editors. And we were saying, first of all, we know poetry to be sexy and cool. It's about death. It's about love, right? It's about being human. And what's cooler and more sexy and morbid than that? And so we said to ourselves, why can't poetry have something like Fashion Week? And so we researched the history of Fashion Week, and it was actually a promo event. As this fantastic promotional person designed it and designed what Fashion Week called. It was originally called Press Week, and it was a way to bring attention to American fashion. And so we're going to do this for poetry. And so we set up an event where poets brought their newest work, unpublished work, and we chose 10 poets each time. And sometimes they applied, and sometimes we just selected. But they brought their newest work, and we filled the audience with publishers and editors. And then they couldn't, just like in a fashion show, the designers themselves didn't get up and show the designs. They had models. So we gave the poets the opportunity to sit on their butts in the audience and bring their best performers, their videographers, their musicians, anybody who could give that new work its proper birth into the public. And then the editors and publishers would say, we'd give them little cards and they'd say, hey, I have interest in this poem that was presented by this poet. And then we'd put them in touch. And we did one in Miami. We did 6 or 7 in Portland. Big, 250 people would come, and they were so fun. It was just the most fun I've ever had at a big event like that. And then sadly, my co-founder got really ill in 2017, and we just haven't been able to do it since. But we believe in the vision of, changing the way people look at poetry, and luckily it's changing now anyway because of Instagram poets, because of fantastic young poets of color, queer poets across the country that are breaking the mold of this dead kind of crusty art form that that old white poets had made it in the 20th century, and they're blowing it open, and they're breathing new life into it, and it's so the world of poetry is exciting again. But we hope somebody takes this vision of Poetry Press Week and carries it forward. So if there's anybody listening now that's interested, reach out to me, because we'd like somebody to keep doing this event.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks for telling me about it.
Reach out to us at XRAY FM. That's KXRY Portland at 91.1 and 107.1 FM. And in Nehalem, Wheeler, Manzanita, and Rockaway Beach at 91.7 FM. Cool. Streaming online everywhere at xray.fm. You are listening to Monday Capricorn Chats with Hana, Francis, and Paul Kim, and we have Justin Rigamonti in studio with us. Justin is a local poet, educator, nonprofit director, and teaches at Portland Community College, and also helps curate our biweekly PCC HARTSBeat segments. We got a few more minutes left today, Justin. We're wondering, thank you for spending time with us here in the studio. What's the next episode of HARTSBeat going to be about? What can listeners look forward to?
Well, the one today was about Carmi Tronky Bell and some of the art that's going on at PCC. I think the next one is going to be the interview with Armin Tolentino, who's the poet laureate of Clark County, Vancouver, and the surrounding areas.
Cool.
And he was at the house last month, and he is the sweetest person. I love his poetry. We had a great conversation. I think we're also going to feature some clips from the last workshop at the Carolyn Moore Writers House, which was hosted by Armin and another poet from LA named Brendan Constantine, who's a fantastic poet. And the workshop, they're both so good at it. They've done it their whole lives, these kinds of workshops. So this was a workshop you could have paid hundreds of dollars for, but it was free and open to PCC students and the public. And we had a lovely little group of folks there, and we spent the morning writing. And so we have some clips from that I think we're going to weave in with the interview that we did with Armin.
Right on.
Who's such an interesting and kind person. And if you ever get the chance to meet him, I hope you get a chance to talk, because he's such a generous and sweet and talented person.
That sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
Thank you guys for having me. It's been a real pleasure to talk, and I'm excited to keep doing this. And we hope to keep doing our segment, the HARTSBeat segment, for months and maybe years to come.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Last thing here, Justin, why don't you plug for us listeners here one last time? Where can folks learn more about poetry in the community? How did they get more involved with the Carolyn Moore's Writer House?
Yeah, the Carolyn Moore's
work you do at PCC.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. The Instagram handle is at CM Writers House, all one word. I encourage you to follow there. We also have our Hearts page, and the link for that I'm not sure. It's an Instagram account. Those are the two best places that we're most active with promoting stuff. So if you follow those two places, you'll get a lot of information. If you're just looking for local Portland information, I encourage you to follow our poet laureate, Anis Mojgani, who's not going to be the poet laureate much more, but he's got a lot of important and wonderful things to say. Follow Literary Arts as well, our local institution, a great place to go to as well.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks
so
so
much,
much.
Justin. It was wonderful chatting with you this morning.